All right, so welcome everyone to the Technical Steering Committee of the EVerest project, the TSC. We do have an antitrust policy notice from the Linux Foundation that we have to follow. So if you have any questions on that, just contact the Linux Foundation. So today's agenda is we'll skip the recap of what EVerest is, because we had that a couple of times already, and basically everybody should be aware of that. But we'll look into what features are new and what's next, and then after the recorded session, we'll have a discussion on a few topics. So what's new? We've been to the May Contain Hackers Festival in the Netherlands and had a lot of fun there. We had our own village for EV charging, and we had a lot of discussions with a lot of hackers about EV charging, and we also had a workshop that you can see in the image where we worked on the new energy management of EVerest, and we got some really good ideas from the community of what's missing or how we could implement things and stuff like that. And I guess we also found some new contributors there. There was also a talk from Marco and me, and in case you missed that on the festival, there is a recording available at the Chaos Computer Club media server. We put the link here on the slides. So feature-wise, one of the biggest new things is type support in EVerest. So before that, when defining an interface, basically, whenever there was a type for an argument or a return type or something, you had to specify a JSON schema definition on how that type looks like. And if a type is used in multiple interfaces, for example, then there was a lot of copy and paste, which was not that nice. So now basically there is a new types folder where you can define JSON schemas for types, and then basically just reference in the interface which type to use as an argument or return type or stuff like that. So that will probably clean up a lot of things, and the pull request will be merged like in the next few days, and then we'll start cleaning up all the interfaces that are out there to basically remove all the redundant copies of the types. On the ISO 15111 side, we've been to the CharIN festival in Zielona in Poland, end of June. We tested basically EVerest's ISO 15111 support with a lot of cars, and also against protocol testers from Keysight and others. And we made sure that basically everything works as expected, and we're as compliant as possible to the norm. But we also found that when we're completely compliant to the norm, then basically charging doesn't work with real cars. So we still have to do our workarounds to be compatible. Another thing that we started is the integration of the Joseph Community Edition. That's basically the successor of the RISE V2G from Switch that we are using right now, and we'll basically deprecate the RISE V2G once the Joseph integration is finished, and it will fully replace that. On the OCPP side, yeah, we're working on compatibility with a lot of different commercial backends out there, doing a lot of testing. And one of the biggest improvements here is that there will be an automated OCPP test tool written in Python. So most of the test tools that are currently out there on the market are heavily manually based. So you basically need to manually step through all the tests. And whenever a car is needed to plug in, you basically plug in your virtual car, click OK that the car is plugged in, and stuff like that. And what we are working on is basically on a fully automated test suite that can test both EVerest's OCPP implementation as well as basically your implementation as well. And it can easily be modified to work on other implementations that are not part of EVerest. And the goal of this is to basically test this protocol on every commit, to put it in a GitHub action basically that runs whenever a commit is done, and so that we can make sure that we do not introduce any bugs into the protocol in the future. And this test tool will be published soon. It's not online yet, but it will come in the next couple of days. And after that, we'll basically work on the plug and charge support for OCPP 1.6. So we found that OCPP 2.01 is not like as widespread as it should be in the industry, especially in the backends. And so we see the need that we also support plug and charge with the older OCPP 1.6 implementation. One smaller feature that we implemented actually on the MCH when we were sitting all together is Autocharge. It's a very simple feature. It basically means that cars authorized against the backends using the MAC address instead of the ID of the RFID cards. It's often confused with plug and charge because for the user it feels somewhat similar. You plug in your car and it starts charging automatically. But on a technical level, it's much more simple and much less secure. So the goal should be to implement full plug and charge, but Autocharge also is supported by a couple of companies right now. The EVerest Admin Panel, we're basically talking about this one in the last 2 or maybe 3 TSC already to give a preview. And it's now in a state where we'll basically release this as open source. It's fully integrated in EVerest. And so with your EVerest installation now, you can connect via a web browser to it. And you see the current configuration, and you can add new modules in a graphical manner. You can connect them with each other. And you can also configure each module. So all the settings of each individual modules, for example, here it's being renamed, or you can, I don't know, for OCPP in the future, change the URL of your backend, stuff like that. It's based on Vue.js, and you can find it in the EVerest Admin Panel repository in the EVerest project. Okay, the onboard display app also got some updates. So now it shows basically a nice initialization whenever it starts up. And it now comes with multi-language support, so you can easily translate it. And also the Wi-Fi selection has been reworked completely, so it's much easier now to find out like which Wi-Fi are you currently connected to, and you can see a list of all the Wi-Fis and stuff like that. So we're still improving like the whole onboarding flow via that onboard app. So yeah, what's next? Yeah, we're currently here in summer 22. So basically we have IAC charging. We have the AC ISO 15118-2 charging. We have basic support for DC charging as well, but we're still missing the DIN stack for full DC support. We have OCPP 1.6 implementation, JSON finished with all extensions that are part of OCPP 1. Also the optional ones, so also smart charging and the security extensions, and everything is in there. We have the display app with all the features. We have price-driven charging and the energy management right now. We have basic support for solar charging at the moment. This is to be improved in the next couple of months. Yeah, and what's coming up until the end of the year, there will be full support for DC charging, including the DIN stack. We'll have support for German Eichrecht power meters. That's a very German thing to need, as well as local credit card payments for all the payment terminals. So to make sure you can not only use the cloud backends, but also pay directly at the charging stations. For next year's and the time beyond, we basically plan to have the 15118-20 support for bidirectional both in AC and DC use cases. And we'll put a lot of effort in improving the energy management as well next year. There's a whole lot of plans on what to do there. OCPP 2.01, we shifted that out basically to next year because there's not strong need in the industry like right now this year. Same goes for EEBus and protocols to talk to the grid, such as USEF and ADR. So yeah, last slide for the official part. The next TSC will happen on the 25th of August. So yeah, please come back, check for updates. And yeah, now I'll basically close the recording and we can start with the discussion.